For broke man's handcuffs, you need 2 rubber bands, out of which one of them should be very, very thin. Usually around 1/16 of an inch works the best, and as stretchy as possible. It will help a lot in the tensioning portion of this video. Now, to begin, take one of the rubber bands and stretch it out between both index fingers. Now, grip on one side both strands into this joint, the first joint of the pinky. When you're doing this, especially in the beginning, you don't want the bands to roll in, because that creates twists that ruin the effect. So you just gently put it on top. Over time you can do it quicker, but in the beginning, gently put it on top and clench it. You will not let this go until the very end of the routine. Now, once you have done so, let go of the index finger, leaving this loop to fall. And that is what it should look like. Then go down and grip the band with the tip of the index finger. You want it to be as close to the tip as possible because you want to be able to release it as easily as possible. So you grip it, and you want, when you're holding the band out, you want the knuckles to be facing as close to the base of your thumb as possible, because you want your the angle of to be as clean as possible, and if you point it outwards, the audience will see the band and it will look suspicious. And that is the complete setup for the left hand. For the right hand, it is very similar. Same thing, you pull it out, you take the pinky and carefully grab both strands so there's no twisting involved. Now, unlike in the other one, you want to keep the rubber band around the index finger. What I would suggest is halfway between the tip of your finger and the first joint. And while it is there, you want to grab the strand up with the tip of your finger. So what you have is the top strand at the tip, the strand, the hidden loop in your hand between the joint and the tip, and that's how it should look like. From the front, it should look simply like you're holding a rubber band between both fists. Simple as that. Now, to the effect, what you do is you bring the tops together, at least for the basic pass-through. Bring the tops together while releasing the top strand, like that. So now you have nothing on the top, you have the loop still around the index finger, you have in this hand the pinky loop free, and you have this gap in the top where if there were a band around it, a band would have fallen through and it would have seemed like it passed through the top. Of course, they do not see that there's a gap. You want to hide it with the fist being together. Now, while the fists are together in this way, showing the band on the bottom, you take your middle finger and you make a space in this loop. You open it up and you grab it with your opposite hand index finger. Again, you open it up and grab it. It should be a very, very quick motion, and immediately afterwards, you want to release your pinky. You want to grip the band with this hand. Take these 2 fingers, re-grip this, and with the pinky, you want to move the pinky forward so the band goes behind it. Again. So after you do the initial pass-through, you open it up, and there you go. That is the quick motion that you'll need to do to make this a convincing effect. Now, after that, you will need to practice releasing the pinky and re-gripping immediately. And that is the entire effect of the original variation of Broke Man's handcuffs. Now, when you add another band to the mix, band appears to pass through. You show the top strand, you show the bottom strand. And you pass through the bottom as well. Now, here are some notes. What I would suggest is when you're doing this effect to lay people, you pass out one of the bands and ask them to stretch it out. Make sure there's nothing, no holes. And as you can tell, in the process of me telling them to check it out, I actually set up my left hand. I then grip the top with my thumb so I can let it loose. Then I take the band back, I put it on top, and I shimmy it down. Now while I shimmy it down, I do the setup for a right hand. Simple as that. So now you're left, the setup. Now there are multiple ways to pass it through the top. One way is simply by closing the gap while letting go. That is more of a simple way of doing it. If you would like, you can have a spectator pull down the bottom, and then while they're pulling down, it creates it makes the top band stretched, and the hands will naturally get closer together until you just break it, or it'll seem like it broke to some degree, and it passed right through. Another thing you can do is you can tap the top of the band. 1, 2, and the last tap passes right through. This kind of gives an excuse to close the gap as well. One final way you can pass through the top is by bringing the top strand down while holding on with the thumb, letting go, and moving the hand back together. So in full motion, this is the most fluid way of making the band pass through the top. Very simple, very convincing. Next, so I taught you this motion. If you do it right, and if you do it slowly enough, the band should easily end up linked on the bottom next to the pinky, apparently trapped, or inside this loop. However, there are a couple techniques you can do to make it seem better, to smooth out this portion. One thing you can do is instead of doing the regripping after the motion, even though I would suggest that, that's what I do. When you're passing it through, you're doing this motion, you can actually extend these fingers and move the pinky back beforehand. Not much, you just want to kind of move the fingers forward so there's enough space for the band to slam into your fist. But if you do it like that, everything's already in place. All I gotta do is regrip with the right hand, and you are done. That is an easier method to regrip the left hand. Now when I do this with another band, I would suggest during this motion you tilt your hand like this. So it appears, because the band will shoot from the middle to the side and need a reason for that. And a good reason is it falls over, or if you want you can make it more convincing by kind of tossing it over to the side during a motion. I will demonstrate. As you can see, I kind of tossed it to the side. It looks like the band is just hanging there. Okay, now you're here. Now there are several ways to pass the band through. So far you've seen me just tug right near the pinky, the band. Just tug downwards while releasing the pinky. And by tugging downwards, you actually make it easier to regrip because you bring the band down to the pinky to grab it. Another thing you can do instead is you can bring it to the middle. After showing the top, I would normally flick the top once, flick the bottom once, and I would grip like this. I would take the middle finger and I'll put it within the gap. And I would hold, and I would kind of put the thumb, the index finger, and the middle finger together, like that, just around the band. So kind of drag it out in this motion. Now if you do this right, and it'll take a bit of practice, from the front, it'll appear like the band is hanging on top of your middle finger, still looped around the middle, which is quite convincing. And all you gotta do is release the pinky, and it passes right through, and you're done. Another thing you can do is you can go back into that position and you can release the pinky and regrip. You can drag the loop to the middle. So you can show the band in the middle of the strand with no attachment. You kind of can melt it through. As simple as that. Another technique you can do, which is kind of a combination of everything, is after passing it through, going to the side, doing what I call the middle pull. You can let go of everything, and you can show the band's linked. As simple as that. You kind of move your hand down, release everything, and it's a very, very clean melt. And it's very convincing. And that's how you can pass it through. Now there are a few other things I would like to talk about before we move on to the next variation. The most important thing you need to know is how to tension. Because one of the most important things of this band is you need to make the double strand on the bottom look as convincing as possible. Now if it's too thick, or if there are visible twists, then it's no longer convincing. So I've already talked about practicing slowly, making sure there's no twists in the band when you're doing the gripping. But how do you make it not be thick? The trick is by making sure it's as stretched as possible when you're in the final stage at the bottom. Now here's how you do so. So originally you want to kind of pull the strand out, not too much, kind of like, I would say about halfway to its maximum point, and grip it at that point. Then what you do is you pull as far as possible to grab this finger, the tip of your left hand. That's the full setup. Now at this point you have a good deal of our band hidden inside his hand, and now this strand here is as stretched as possible. Now you would get the band back, or if you would just set it up in front of them, and what you would do is you want to go as low down as possible to where it's not stretched at all, and you want to pull it out like that. There you go. So now this is as stretched as possible, and you want to move it up. You want to grip the pinky there. Number one, this makes it easier to avoid twisting, and also this makes the loop inside the hand as lax as possible, and by extension, the top and the bottom strand as tight as possible, which will lead to a thinner band and more convincing illusion. So again, you go to the bottom where it's completely lax, you grip it, you move it up to the top, and stretching it a little bit above. You don't want to be right at the hand, but a little bit above, maybe like around an inch apart. You grip it. You go to the middle point here, you grip that, and now if you do this right, it'll feel very, very tight from the top and the bottom. In fact, if you do it right, every single strand here should be at its tightest, the tightest it can possibly be. Like, you should not be able to stretch it any more than this. So when you release it, the band should be very thin and almost indistinguishable from a regular band. And then the rest of the motion is done as simple as before. Now, I forgot to state this, but you don't need to pass the band out to the spectator and do it. You can just do that motion. With practice, you can make sure that doesn't get in your way when you're setting it up, so it looks neat, and you can kind of talk about, oh, there's no holes in this band, very simple, very clean, and in that motion you can set up. That takes practice, and you have to make sure that you actually throw the band out of the way. As you can see, when I'm setting up the left hand, I move it to my right hand. When I'm setting up the right hand, I throw it to my left hand. I do the trick. Now the last thing I'd like to mention before I close this variation is there are times in any broke man's handcuffs routine where the band will be caught. Oh, didn't get caught. It'll be slightly caught inside the band at the bottom, kind of like that. This is not good. It's not very convincing. Now what you can do if you're in this situation, because the spectators haven't really focused on it yet, they're still trying to comprehend it pass through. So what I normally do is I kind of shimmy it down, kind of flick it once or twice, and normally it cleans itself up quite nicely. So 1, 2, and it should fix itself. If normally this will not happen if you practice a lot and you do it slowly. Speeding it up will increase the risk by a ton. You want to do a slow motion, and if you practice it a lot, it should just never happen. And the trick is, when you're doing it, you want the band to not contact it, to not be at an angle. It should be perfectly vertical, so there's a clear path for the band to make it to the bottom. That being said, if you are afraid, if you don't feel like you have to practice and it happens too often to you, you can have the spectator pull down on the bottom of the band in order to pass through, and that will automatically sort out the problem because they will clear out automatically any knots that are made. And that is how to solve the knot problem that you might encounter many times. Another piece of advice is just, if you look at a band and it has visible cuts or scrapes or it seems like it's about to break, it's probably going to break in this routine because it requires a lot of tension. And I would probably not suggest continuing and doing the routine because it might be quite embarrassing when the band snaps. Now, yeah, that's about it. So, now on to the next variation. Now next up I'm going to be explaining the bridge and the fair view variation. I will do it in parallel because they are both very, very slight variations on the original routine. Everything that I said before applies. Most of the motions are similar. There's just 1 or 2 moves extra that kind of adds a little bit more oomph to the illusion. So the first one, the bridge variation. Do the same thing as the original. Same tensioning, same everything. And after you pass it through, and you open up the gap and you grip it, instead of immediately letting go of the pinky and doing all the regripping and everything, you just move this hand, the left hand, up to kind of bring both bands out. And when you're doing this, you want to hide this band behind your fist. Then you want to extend your middle finger to between the index finger and the middle finger. Like, you don't want to be like that, you don't want to really like fully extended, but you want to just slightly, just so it hides the band barely. Now if you do it right, you'll be left with a still freely hanging band from the bottom, a single strand on top, and a bridge in the middle, which was quite convincing. And the coolest part about the bridge variation is that you can kind of show the bottom, and then when you go on the other side and you release it, you can also do the left hand fancy way of regripping it, just having it already set up. But for the right hand, when you release from the bridge variation, all your fingers are already there. So you just close your hand, let go of pinky, close your hand. As simple as that. Another thing that you can do, and this also applies to the original, is if you don't want to do the big regrip on the right hand, I'll go back to the original for a moment. There you go, that issue. And what you can do is you can actually take the 4th finger and bring it inside. So what you have is the 4th finger normally will be like this. You can bring it inside the gap as well. So when we release the pinky, everything happens. Nothing changes. It looks quite normal. So again, I'll also add the fancy open hand automatic regrip on the left hand as well. After passing it through, you bring the 4th finger inside, you open up the left hand, you move the pinky back, and let go. And and everything's just like it was. No regripping afterwards. If you do this, all the regripping happens before, and it looks quite natural. You kind of close the hand and you open it up, and the band's outside here. You kind of tilt your hands to the side. It's very convincing. This also applies to the bridge. So you just pass it through, do the bridge variation. You show the band on the bottom. You put the fourth finger inside it quickly, release it. You pass it through, and you're done. And that's the bridge variation. Now, for the fair view variation, it's like the bridge, as in you show the band freely on the bottom and a strand on the top, but instead of a bridge, you double up the strand on top, so it's a bit more convincing. So how you do this is after passing it through and opening it up. Instead of taking your index finger and putting it inside the gap, you take your middle finger, put it inside the gap, and you release. If you, I tension it wrong. If you tension it right, this should be quite lax, so the next part should be very easy. You just pull it out while tilting both hands down, so like that. Pull it out, down. A quick motion. You show top strand fine, bottom strand fine. Still freely hanging bottom, you can move it around. Show it one more time. There you go. Now what do you do in order to continue? Is you bring the top together and you let go of the index finger's grip on the middle band. You kind of go down to a lower bridge view. Just for a second, you just, after you top, there you go, just for a second, you can do the fancy regripping. It goes down to the bottom. And next to the pinky, do a little show, you pass it through. One more time. So after you do the fair view variation, which is, tensioning. I'm very lazy, so I don't do tensioning very often. There we go, that's proper tensioning. You can hear the proper tensioning, by the way. And now, what you do, let go, get to the bottom, and that was without fancy regripping, just regular. And you're done. You continue as normal, and that's the fair view variation. And that was the bridge and the fair view variation of Broke Man's Handcuffs. Now to the next one. The next variation is the biggest break from the mold that we've had so far. So far we've had the same basic motion. Passing through, move, pass through, simple. For the there and back variation, we are changing everything to kind of give the illusion of the band not passing through entirely, but going down and then going back up. Now, I will start like I did the original. I'll show you the original. You pass out the band, or if you want, you can have it already on, and you can do it while you're doing this. Same way as the Broke Man's Handcuffs original variation. You move to the left, right hand if you're working in the left hand, move to the left hand if you're working in the right hand. Hit it by gravity, let it fall, so each hand, very simple. But for the sake of explanation, you pass out the band to the spectators to stretch it out, and this time instead of just doing the index fingers, you do index to ring finger. So you show it, front, back, stretching, and while you're doing this motion, you pull, you hold your pinky out, and you do the grip, like that. Just grip it. Same way, you don't want it to twist in. It takes practice. You want to just kind of lay it gently into the first joint. And you're done. Well, you want to take the index finger, grip it from the top, from the fingertip, and you're done. Now you take the band back, you do the same thing. You hold it in place with the thumb, put it on the right hand, you kind of shimmy it down, and while you're shimmying it down, you're gripping it again with the right hand in the same exact way. Nothing changes. Now for this one, you'll be very careful because you're having a band that stretches all the way down the first knuckle. So you want to really twist the hands inside. You want to really see only this. You don't want to kind of see all the extra band stuff in the background. You want to really twist your hands inwards. So you're showing the span. Now, same thing as before, you can do anything you want. You can do the cool fluid melt through, you can do tap tap, you can just make it fall through, you can make the spectator pull on it. Whatever you want to do. But same as before, release both index fingers. And you pass it through to the bottom. And then all you gotta do to finish it off is let go of the pinkies, moving the hands upwards. You want to move the hands all the way up so that the pinkies have a very, very simple regrip. Because if you just go up here, the pinkies are kind of left alone, it's kind of hard to kind of pull them up. But if you go all the way up for just a moment, the pinkies can grip easily, you go back down. So one more time. What you do, pass your top, go back up, grip with the pinkies, go back down, show the band. As simple as that. Now for tensioning, because this is a new technique, has a different tensioning procedure, you want to really pull it out when you're doing this. You want, for the original pinky grab, you want it to be kind of loose, about halfway to full stretch. Then you want to fully stretch it for the index finger, for the tip. So about halfway for bottom, full stretch for top. Same thing for right hand, about halfway, like about an inch over the hand for the pinky. And you won't have much room, but you want to kind of go to the middle, grab to the top. And I have a really stretched band bottom, a moderately stretched band on the bottom. I'll explain in a moment how to make that a little bit better. But you can just pass it through, and normally this should be enough if you want to, if you're as lazy as I am. If you want to also tension the bottom, before you begin, you kind of shift, you twist both hands towards each other so that the ring fingers are holding each other, then you grip and you pull it out. Now you also have tension the bottom, and the same procedure as the top, slightly grip the bottom, slightly grip the top. Now you have a fully tensioned hand that you can pass through the bottom, bring back to the top. I would not suggest the second method because I think it's more work than it's worth, and you get just as good an effect, and I've never had a spectator catch me with the basic tensioning with like that. It's good enough. And that is the there and back variation of broke man's handcuffs. Now, to the next variation. Now, the ultimate broke man's handcuffs variation is arguably the most visual and convincing, if you can do it and do it convincingly. Well, yeah, but if you can do it and the spectators don't realize what's going on, it is probably the most eye candy of the broke man handcuffs tricks. It works best on camera, in my opinion. People have a slight chance of figuring it out in real life. I've had quite a few cases where they catch me on it. But it's also the hardest to master. It's a very difficult move. But I think it's worth it, and here we go. So, same as in the original, same tensioning procedure. You really want this to be tensioned properly. In fact, you want this to be the loop inside your fist to be as loose as possible. So now you're here, before you grip with the index finger. Now before you do, bring the hands close together as if you're about to go for it. Then let go of the index finger. So you're left like that. You're basically the end result of the broke man's handcuffs, or the middle portion of it. You're right there. So you're left with the loop inside his hand, pinky holding to the loop, and the strand at the bottom, nothing else. Then what you do is you open it up and move it down to your pinky. So you want your pinky to remain closed and still gripping the loop. You kind of just slide this in. Slide this in. And this is done behind the cover of your hand. This you can kind of talk, you can patter over this if you're in real life, or you can do it underneath the table. I normally do it underneath the table. And you kind of just let go of everything. Let go of this index finger. So you're kind of, at this point, the spectator looks like you're stretching it out, kind of moving your hands around each other, nothing really going on. So now what you have, you want to take the middle finger, you want to put everything to this little triangle, with the middle finger, the ring finger, and the pinky holding it like this. And what you will have is you'll have the loop around the pinky, over and gripped by the same pinky. Then what you do is you go down to the band that's hanging between here. And you take your index fingers, and you kind of slide it down around the bottom band, like that. And you grip one of the strands and pull it up. Just like that. You grip one of the strands and pull it up. And you combine them with the top strands. So, grip, combine, up. So now you're left with a triple strand on top and a single strand on the bottom. You really want to pull the triple strand as tight as possible. And also you want to use your thumbs to push down on the triple band to flatten it out so that's facing the audience like this. If you do that, it should look like them from, unless you're looking straight above it, where you're looking at, it should look like a single band and a band's hanging from the top of it. And if you do it right, you should see it. You should see triple band very, very clearly. But if you see it, they probably don't, unless they're standing right behind you. Now, in order to do the effect, let go of the index finger. Now, for the ultimate variation, it's very common that it will do this. And also, I'm kind of tilting my hand to show you how it's happening, so it'll knot up. But you'll find that it'll actually do the knot on the bottom a lot. So what I would suggest to kind of avoid that is, in this variation, you kind of have these fingers free after that, so you can kind of just do this motion quickly. You don't have to be concerned about holding it still. And one thing which I like to do is I like to grip the top of the band if it's knotted, and pull the top out, if I can spot it quickly enough. But same technique for twisting, and if you want, you can have a spectator pull it down, and that'll also solve the issue. Now, what you do is you then take these two fingers and regrip. So in the end, what you have is pass it straight through and regrip. You can, well, as we talk about, see single strand on the bottom, single strand on top, even though you have a double on bottom, double on top, and you're done. Now, there are ways to go into the fair view variation from here. In fact, you could have technically put on your ring finger or middle finger, and you could have done the fair view variation with this. But personally, what I like to do is this interesting technique, where you bring the top, after you show the bottom, and you kind of move it around, show it's free on the bottom, you go to the top, you bring the top together, and you separate the band, like that. Kind of run your thumb down until the band is fully unentangled, and you have it separated. Then you grip the top strand, and you now have this situation. You have the top strand on top, just on top of the index fingers, and you have the middle through pinky fingers holding on, making a little triangle, same as in the beginning. Now what you do is you let go of these two fingers. You let go of the middle finger. You let go of the pinky. All this is happening while you actually twist your hand. You hide everything behind your left fist. You bring your right hand there, and you let go of everything while you're doing this. And then what you do, while you're twisting out, you take your pinky, you move your hand up, and you grip it, move it down. And now what you have is you have a triple band on the bottom, holding it in the middle. And I'll let go of the fourth finger, and I'm done. Now what I normally do is I kind of twist it up to show a relatively slightly thicker double band, but it looks a lot more convincing when I twist it up and show them. That's fine. This is kind of angle sensitive, but it's the ultimate variation. You kind of have to expect that. So I twist it up, I show it to them. So I just, I do the entire motion, I let go of everything behind the hand, I grip my pinky, I let go of the fourth finger, and I move it back in front, and I twist my hand up and I show it to them. I kind of shake it around, make sure that there's no, like, it's a bit blurred, that they don't really see the triple band or even accidentally. Now you can do, what you do to make it pass through is you can either have just let go, and I would suggest either just letting go normally, or you can actually have the spectator hold on, and you can kind of pop it off. So the spectator holds on and just follows right through, and it's very, very eye candy when you do that. Or another thing you can do, I'm going to skip past everything because, yeah, not exactly in the, there we go. Or what you can do is you can actually let go of the right hand while moving it down and covering this little knot thing here going on, and you can pull it out. And when a spectator, if you twist your hand like that, this is the bad view, this is the good view. You twist your hand like this, they will see, if you stretch it far enough, they will see what appears to be two bands interconnected. Then let go of the pinky, and they snap apart, and you are done. This, when you're doing this, you should not stop. You should not let them, even though it's relatively clean, you don't want to like let them see that, oh, there's a triple band holding on. You want to kind of pull it apart, and then at some point it just breaks. So constant motion, you pull it apart, and it just snaps apart, and you have an impossible illusion. And that's the ultimate variation. Now, there's one final variation remaining. The just passing through variation is the simplest. In fact, it is simpler than the original. The reason why I'm teaching it last is because this is the multi-tool of the broke man handcuffs variation lineology. This is actually an original variation that has parts cut out of it. And the reason for it, in fact, you should not do this with rubber bands. You want to do this with a rubber band and, for instance, a necklace, or a ring, or a donut, or a mug handle, or a fence, or something. Just anything that is not thin, or even if it's thin, just something that would not fit well next to your pinky, or you cannot do the original with. So what you do is you do the original, you pass it through, and then when you get here, instead of doing the regripping and everything and showing it on the bottom, what you do instead is you just let go of everything, regrip. Let go, regrip. Now, if I had a necklace or a ring, or a spectator holding their hand in the shape of a ring, or even a fence, I'll explain using a fence as an idea. So what I can do is I can have my hands through a fence, and I have a post in front of me, and I can pass it through, basically making the gap, passing the fence post through the gap, and then close my hands behind it. And I can kind of pull the band out so that it looks like the post has passed through the top strand. Then I do the motion, and I pass it through the other side as well, and it appears to have broken through the bottom as well. And you have a perfectly clean rubber band through fence. Or if you have a spectator, you can have the spectator hold their hands in a fist around it, or just their fingers ringed around it. You just do the same thing. Well, not that. You do, that was regrip. You do the same thing, just let go, and it just passes straight through their fingers, or their ring, or so on. This is the multi-tool because you're skipping a lot, it's very simple, and you can really do anything you want. And my challenge to you, as people who have probably bought this routine, is just go wild. Try this out. See what works, what doesn't, what people like, what people don't like. I think you'll enjoy just passing through the just passing through or skipping variation quite well. It's truly the multi-tool of the broke man handcuffs lineology. That's it. So next up is rubber band-aid, and before I begin with that, I'm going to teach you an effect that I actually have not created. This can be found online. I've looked for a while for someone to credit for it, but I really found nobody. Just nobody showed up. But if you search up rubber band through thumb, you'll find at least 50 or 60 articles online of various methods of doing it, and this is the one I was taught a while back by a young kid at a magic shop. And here's how it goes. You take the rubber band, you put it between your middle finger and your thumb, put your thumb inside here, and you pull it out. There's a little triangle. Now you take your middle finger and you grab the band, the strand between both thumbs, and you pull it down. And then you have you're left like this, and you take your thumb, you put it inside the gap, let go of the middle finger, pass it right through. Again, you go across, you put your thumb inside, you let go, bite for a little bit, you hold on to it, and it passes right through. Now whenever I use this routine, I normally progress from a rubber band through thumb to a rubber band through my thumb and your thumb. What I do is I hold it like this. I kind of let go of the thumb and I kind of move over to a simple grip with the index finger, and I say here, put your finger inside here as well. And they put their finger inside here, and I explain to them that before the rubber band could easily have fallen off my thumb, but now that your finger's here, it can't escape either way except through. And that's quite bewildering for most people. And while I'm talking to them, I kind of explain to them that I want to create something that's truly incredible, and the thumb doesn't cut it, but I think that the wrist does. And I do that interesting the rubber band-aid technique. And here's how that works. Take a rubber band, put it on your wrist. In fact, I would normally suggest putting it around your hand about halfway or 2/3 of the way from your finger, the tips of your fingers to your wrist. And I grip with all the fingers of this hand, except for the thumb, in a really tight grip that I can kind of open and close. That's important. It'll come in a little bit. Then you take your thumb and you put it inside the gap. You go down and up. So you kind of do a, you point it downwards towards you and then all the way up. You then grip this strand right here. So again, down, up, and you grip the strand between your index finger and the thumb, the topmost strand, basically. You grip it, you pass the thumb, you grip it, you pass it through this little loop thing, and while you're doing that, you want to actually extend these fingers. You want to kind of open up, because you have this gap right here, and when you open it up, you can put it on your fingers, and let go. And now you're left like this. Now all you gotta do is take your thumb, and you use this loop to pull down your wrist, and you let go. It should bite, and you can pass it right through. Again, grip your thumb, down, towards you, up, grip far side, pull it through until this thing kind of pops off your thumb, open up your hand, the gap, put it on your hand, let go, drag it down your wrist, let go, sharp tug, pass it right through. Now, to do it around somebody else's wrist, or really anything, a simple modification you can do to the technique is, instead of going all the way, you can instead, when you're at this point, where you're about to pull it down with your thumb, you can take all your fingers instead and open it up and put your fingers inside the gap. So kind of arch my hand a little bit so I have a nice little space that I can kind of just put my fingers underneath and drag it right off. And then open it up, and I have this nice loop with a knot in it, a fake knot, and I can put it on their wrist. And when I do this, I normally hide the knot with my thumb while I kind of move their hand around so they can't see where it is. This can be done with practice, and then you ask them to grab onto the string, or you can do it yourself and you pass it right through their wrist. As simple as that. Or if you want, you can use the same technique to put it around a soda can or a bottle or really anything, and you can pass it right through it. So my thoughts is, I kind of expanded it a little bit. I kind of showed you a really wide view so you can actually see what's going on. But when you're actually doing it, you want it to be really behind your palm. All the action kind of happens really well hidden. Everything's going on. Here, I'll do it. Really hard from this angle. But there you go. So I just did everything behind the hand. You just want to hide everything. Behind the hand, you want to make it as tiny as possible and really close to the hand, the entire motion. You kind of want to work from very far out to very close in. You kind of just want to basically keep the hands close to touching as possible throughout this routine, so everything's well hidden and there's very clean angles. And that's rubber band-aid. Both through my wrist, through your wrist, through anything, and with a little touch of rubber band through thumb, based off of online, with no crediting, which I'm sorry. An additional thought, which you could do with rubber band-aid, is when you're doing the around anything, you can instead use it as a broken band routine, where you can use the fact you have a fake loop and you can kind of snap it or something, and you can do like a healing band routine, or really you can go wild, because just use whatever normal healing routine you normally use for bands, and it's an idea. You don't have to do it, but it's pretty cool. And that is rubber band-aid. Thank you very much. Now it's the next trick. So, the next trick I want to teach you is called the vanishing band, and several variations of the idea. So, the basic concept is you take a rubber band around your wrist, you take it off, you twist both hands in opposite directions, this one counterclockwise, this one clockwise, at least from my perspective. And while you're doing this, you bring the loop around your fist. So you have a rubber band on your fingers. From the back, you have this little cross right here. Now all you gotta do is you gotta take these fingers. As you can see, the strand is over all the fingertips, and all you gotta do is push it off, and the rubber band vanishes from around the fist. Simple as that. And if I had multiple bands on my wrist, so I just vanish it like that, looks pretty cool. And that is the vanishing band. Now, how you can take it to another level is by introducing a appearance. So for what I call the ultimate jumping band, I call it the massive jumping band. What you do is, I normally start out with one band around the other wrist and one band here. And what I do is I set up this hand. I do the same technique where I just twist both hands in opposite directions and then bring it over as before. Twist it over, bring it around the hand, all the fingertips are below the strand, and so on. And then while I'm doing this, I kind of talk about the band, and behind my back, I kind of go on my pant leg and I kind of drag it down my hand until it gets to my fingertips. And what I do is I take my thumb, I bring it around the thumb. You want to take the inside over and onto the thumb. So, inside, over, around the thumb. And all you gotta do is you open this hand and have a rubber band stretched out inside of it. So what I do is just kind of 1, 2, and a third strike, I make this band vanish while opening this hand. And all of a sudden, it appears to have passed from this fist to this hand. And that is the massive jumping band. Now, to do a color change, open the rubber band. You can use a smaller rubber band like this one. This one is significantly smaller, and I'll teach you 2 different methods of doing it. So with a smaller band, what I do is I put it around the fingers like this. Just before the trick, I kind of just underneath the table or my pocket or something behind my back, I quickly put it on. I would normally not put this on my wrist beforehand because you don't want to give them the thought of, oh, he put it on and he switched them out somehow. You want it to be like, oh, a completely new band is in play and it's a completely different color. And what you do is you bring, and by the way, when you're doing this, it's very convincing. If you do it quickly enough, it seems like you actually pulled it off your wrist and onto your fist, and that's what you're really trying to go for. And what you do is, while you're opening this hand up, making the yellow band vanish, you expand your fingers like this. Kind of shoot your index finger out, and what it does, it draws the blue band down. So all of a sudden you instantaneously changes to a blue band. Once again, around here, you kind of bring it out here. 1, 2, 3, and it changes. And that is the color changing band, based on the vanishing band routine. Now, if you were, this rubber band is really tiny, so it could fit on these fingers really well and pops right off. But if you're dealing with a bigger band, for instance, this one, which, as you can see, is a bit harder to do. You can still do it, but it's a bit looser. What I do instead is I do the same thing as before. I do it around the thumb, which is same as the other hand. You kind of bring it down, around. There you go. So one more time. So down, around. Simple as that. And now I'm going to do a blue to yellow change. So all I got to do, expand it, and it appears. Changes color. And that is the vanishing band color change. So before I continue, I thought I would drop a quick note about how to load the band when you are trying to do the color change, and go a bit more in depth on how you load the left hand for the massive jumping band. So what I normally do is, for the color change, I go to my pocket and I kind of take the band and I link it over my fingers, usually middle to pinky. Kind of go in, maneuver a little bit, get it right there. Then I bring out the hand and I show the yellow band, and kind of like here. Take a look at the band, I'm about to change color. I go back, and behind the cover of this hand, I open this up, and I put all the fingers inside, like that. And I disguise this in the motion of going to grab the yellow band. So one more time. Go over, grab the yellow band, kind of pull it over to kind of make sure they know you grabbed it, and make a sharp tugging motion while, well, normally I'll grab a band farthest way, so it actually will clump with the rest of them. Into the motion. Looks like this. Drag it all the way to the top of your hand. That's how it looks like. You do the color change, and you're done. Once more, you go to your pocket, get your band you want to change the color into, put it around your middle finger to pinky, show everyone the band, go back here, link it while going to grab the band one more time, and just put it around the hand, and change the color, and you're done. Now for the massive jumping band. I would normally have my sleeves up, but it makes no difference really, because people don't really remember the band on this hand. I kind of keep it on my wrist, and I set up the right hand, as explained in the tutorial. Set it up for the vanishing band. So set it up, and now pretend this is my jean. I kind of go behind my leg or something, and I just, in 2 swipes, I get to the tip of my fingers. So what's that? And I kind of bring my hand close to the other hand, like as if I'm about to just tapping it. While I do that, I put it around my thumb. Or if it's like a blue band, like a smaller band, you don't need it. You can just do the open. But if it's a bigger band, what I do is put it on the thumb like this. So just grip with my finger and I kind of do the tap, 1, 2, and then I pass it through. And I show it went. Same thing for the setup. If I was using a larger band, I probably should go over larger band for this. Same thing. I first gesture to this one, I kind of pull it up, And now for this one, I kind of do the motion while I kind of just put it on my index finger, and while going to grab it, I put it over the thumb. So my hand kind of covers the motion. While I go to grab this, I kind of pull it all the way around. Well, I changed it to the same color, but I think you get the point. And that is the color changing band. So yeah, that was about how to load the band. I hope it was useful. Now on to the next one. The final thing I would like to show you before I finish off this project is something I call simple flourish. And it's a rubber band through finger, through finger, through finger, then back up again, through the entire hand, and then followed with the vanishing band is a cool ending for our band act. And here's how it looks like. So, from the front, looks kind of like that. From the back, that's the first phase. So what I do is I go up and I go down, and while I'm doing that I kind of clench my hand slightly. And I just take the rubber band and I put it over the fingernail of the index finger. And when I extend the fingers, pass it right through. So the motion of the hand is you close the hand, you open it, close the hand, you open it. So it looks like a natural just manipulating the hand, while instead you're kind of just using this natural hand motion to make the rubber band actually pass through each finger one at a time. So do it again, and you're done. You're all the way at the bottom. So go back up, same thing. Instead this time, you take 2 fingers and you put them within the gap. So the bottom 2, you put them within the gap, and you pass it up. I like doing this like nice little twisting motion, so there you go. So just a clockwise twist, really. I left this big knot right here. I kind of just get rid of it real quickly, and I kind of talk to the spectator about that. I say, well, it was pretty cool passing it through each finger one at a time, and while I'm talking, I twist it and I put it around these fingers. So a clockwise twist and over the fingers. And then I kind of pretend to still hold onto the strand, and I go up and I grip the one right behind the index finger. So right here, I grip it and I pass it over. And I say, well, I can pass it through every single finger, but I think it's much more difficult to take it and actually pass it through the entire hand. You have this nice little motion where it seems to actually pass through the entire hand. And I show them the front of the hand and say, so you see a regular rubber band, I kind of stretched out, show the front, show them the back, and on the last show, I take my thumb, I put it on, bring it onto my wrist, twist, and you're in a vanish. And that show's over. Again, for the vanish, you're right here. So take your thumb. There you go. Kind of bad. You don't want it. You want to really pull it down pretty far, more like that, yeah. And vanish. So back from the beginning, it's a very simple trick. So just doing that motion while actually closing the entire hand every single time to kind of help make the motion seem more natural. Then on the way back up, just put 2 fingers at a time within the gap, do a nice clockwise motion. You get rid of all the knot. You then twist it, put it on the fingers, pretend to hold on to the knot, you grip the strand behind the index finger, pull it up, pass through the entire hand, show the front, and while going back, pass it over your thumb. I'll do a bit better this time. So, pass it over your thumb, there we go. And what you do, you simply make it vanish. Now, if you wanted to keep going after that, one final thing you can do is, if you actually put your hand, this hand, over the wrist to show like this. It's a bit suspicious, but no one thinks much about it. It kind of acts kind of like, oh, you see it's not going to go anywhere. I'm holding on to my wrist, it can't go anywhere now. Well, in truth, you can go practically down to your wrist, so it makes no difference, but they don't know that. So I'm holding on to my wrist, it can't go anywhere, and what I do is I put my finger right here. So I go all the way around, and I put my finger inside a little, this little fleshy indent in my hand, right between this V and rubber band. What happens when you let go, it goes over the middle finger. So now I'm hooked onto the band, because you see, it vanished, and I pulled it all the way off by accident, my bad. Did it again. So, hand goes right here. As you can see, appears once more. So it's a nice little pseudo vanish and reappearance by rubber band. To make, to grip it, like I failed the first time, but to properly grip it, what you do is you show it vanished, and then you close these fingers, and you take your middle finger, which is holding onto the band, you pull it down, and it should fall directly into your cupped fingers, and it has appeared. And that's a cool little note you can add at the end. And that is a simple flourish, the final project of Heyst, the rubber band chapter. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed my creations.